Alex here with part 7 of the Respondent. This one starts off with the sound of a gavel, which was indicative of what I suspected the very first hearing. So I was pretty excited. Um, it would be nice to have more information. Maybe. I don't know yet. Maybe. I don't know. He doesn't obviously go into every teeny tiny detail of this domestic violence restraining order trial, but he goes into enough. Um, it's just hard for me to say that I believe everything he's saying. Um, but I'm leaning. I'm like on the 50-50. I'm on the fence, guys. I'm on the fence. A lot of the things that he's saying are plausible. Um, it's a tough one if you can't tell by all of the ums. I'm gonna have to continue to read this to get a better opinion. But I'm gonna go through the notes now. Let's see here. He talks about 80. That's the number. 80 visits to the courthouse. I'm not sure. I doubt that it's all just visits to go to trial. Maybe there were visits for meetings and mediations and settlements. Maybe there were hearings on motions prior to this domestic violence restraining order trial. Possibly that could be a thing. Maybe he had to file stuff. I don't know. Sounds weird because he has an attorney. He shouldn't have to file anything, but maybe he did. He does mention that, and I can relate to that. I don't know if I had 80 visits just to my first TPO hearing. In fact, that doesn't sound right at all. But over the course of all those years, I wouldn't be surprised if I had 150 or 200 visits because I had to go and file so many times. File the motion, file the reply, check and pick stuff up. So yeah, you end up kind of living there. He was talking about the building. I don't need to go into that. I mean, it was a cold building. He says, stone everything, stone benches, stone walls, stone. I understand that. Yeah, it's not a place that's meant to be happy, and that's pretty consistent with most courthouses. I feel like the federal courthouse that I went into recently was really unfriendly, really cold. I mean, I've been into the family court here in Clark. I've been into a lot of courts actually because we record, and I haven't seen anything quite as cold and callous as the federal court building. It looks really nice, so it's like an icy beauty. Let's see here. He talks about the problem of oblique legal speak. I mean, he kind of talked about it a little bit before anyway. Yeah, I mean, that's what the attorneys are going to use. They're going to use their legalese. They're going to cite the law, statutes, rules, case law. The judge is going to probably be doing the same thing. I mean, I think people kind of get that before, without even reading the book. I think people assume they're going to go into court and they're not going to understand anything. It's not good, but I don't think it's shocking at all. Interesting that he points out that there are ways to tell a client apart from a lawyer, and he kind of highlights like bloodshot eyes with those black puffy marks when you haven't been able to sleep. He talks about that stuff, and I mean, yeah, it's I talk about that in my docket series. Probably for the first 2 years, I couldn't sleep or I didn't sleep well because your life's upside down. I get that. That's good that he's bringing that up. That's it's something to point out. Opening statement. How he was called a drug-addled narcissistic something. I can't remember now. Pretty horrible stuff, but that's what you need to expect. So I mean, it's a good thing that's in the book because that's what's going to happen. If you're a high conflict X hires a good attorney, good being good subjective to what they expect of their attorney, that's what they're going to do for them. They're going to attack you. It's similar to how they attack you. If they don't get that from their lawyer, they will find one who will do that. That's another thing that I talk about on the channel. Um, he also says, the relationship with his own lawyer wasn't good. He talks about how he was coached before the trial, and how he was uncomfortable with that, but his lawyer told him, look, this is just how things are done. I don't know if I believe that in the general sense. I would very much believe that that's what they do for rich people. I mean, if you are a rich person, you're paying 30,000, 40,000, 50, 60, 70, $100,000 retainers, you are going to get that kind of attention. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if the clients were coached on what they should say and how they should say it. The script, he calls it a script. He basically got a script from her. Not only did she tell him what to say, she told him how to say it. She would berate him during the breaks between the testimony to tell him what a terrible performance he was putting on. I think at one point his own lawyer told him, that you're losing the trial for me. Like, it's all about her, and he's a loser because he doesn't know what the heck to do, and he's not following her script or whatever. And because of him, she's gonna lose. Yeah, that's believable too. It's very believable that there's attorneys who would think that way. I mean, that's a two for one right there. Not only do they get to shame you into doing what they want, but they also, I mean, after they lose the trial, they can say, "Hey, it was your fault. I told you like 5 days ago it was kind of, we were going to lose. It's because you didn't know how to follow my script." Yeah, that's completely completely something that I'm sure happens. Like I said, guys, with the client that's rich. I talk about this in the video, A Tale of Two Lawyers. I explain why this is I explain why this happens this way. If you have an attorney who is just taking 30 or 40, 50 clients for $5,000 retainers, I doubt they're going to be coached. I doubt they're going to spend any extra time with them at all. They're probably just going to meet with them outside the courthouse doors 10 minutes before the hearing, hash things out, go in, do their hearing, and leave. That's probably the only time they're going to talk to their own attorney. So, or maybe there's an initial consult and that's it. But really, the thing about being coached and told what to say, how to say it, to get a script and all that kind of extra attention, that's typically somebody who's going to end up spending $150,000 with their attorney. They're just going to get a different class of attorney, a different type of case, more attention. But yeah, I mean, for him to tell me that he had a script and it wasn't good and he didn't like it, that he probably did have a script and he probably didn't like it and he probably didn't do a good job on it. He talks about how there were all these witnesses that came in. I think a lot of people on this channel are going to be like, what? Yeah, another thing. If you're a nobody that doesn't have a ton of money, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't see a single witness in any of your hearings. I had so many hearings, and only one time did witnesses come in, and that was for my modification of physical custody. The dentist and Brittany and the hygienist, and that was it. It's different when you're poor and you don't have a ton of money. You don't get that full scale trial that goes over the course of multiple days. I had, what was it, one day? It was one day for me. When it came to like I talk about in the video, A Tale of Two Lawyers, if you have a situation where you're rich and you're paying your attorney 150 grand, 250 grand, anything like that, you're going to have a trial with like 8 witnesses. It's not surprised at all by that. I've heard about it too. I've seen some of these Facebook lawyers, family court lawyers will post on Facebook that they just got out of a 5-day trial, 20-day trial. I've heard of 20-day trials. I'm like, whoa, that must have been 2 millionaires on their own, both of them making that much, because it's an incomprehensible amount of time, which translates into an extortionate amount of attorney fees. Most people just don't have that kind of money. Sorry, that's the truth. Sorry, not sorry. I guess that's what that's what that line's about. Lots of witnesses went over that. A lot of witnesses that he thought were friends that testified against him aren't friends anymore. That's one of the things about these cases. It's just the nature of the beast. He talks about how the DCFS, Department of Child Family Services, witnesses, caseworkers went up and testified against him. One of the things that I like that he went into detail on was that the caseworker pointed out that she had substantiated child abuse allegations against him and that he did not appeal her decision because, I guess like a letter was sent to his house and there was a time limit. His lawyer pointed out, where did you send that letter to? And she said, I sent it to where his house is. And the judge apparently picked up on that he's not allowed in his house. And let me guess, your ex didn't forward it to you. So, I mean, that's totally believable to me. Absolutely is a stunt that would be pulled. Brian testified. So that was the guy that was the neighbor to his original house, to his wife, that let him stay there, and then he used his phone and all that, if you guys remember. Testified for the most part, I guess, against Greg Ellis, and he actually even said at one point that he didn't know if he had a gun in his pocket, and that really ticked off the respondent, and he was especially ticked off that his attorney did not object to that statement. What do I think about that? I mean, it sounds a little fishy. It sounds like a little. I mean, this guy doesn't sound like the type of guy. This guy sounds really pompous, and I don't want to use the word pompous. Let me change that. Hold on. This guy sounds aloof and super wealthy and horribly naive. It just is tough for me to think from what I've been reading so far and hearing his voice, because I think that's his voice actually on this Audible. I think he himself narrated it. Somebody let me know if I'm wrong down in the comments. It just doesn't sound to me like the type of guy who's gonna, especially since he broke that window. I highly doubt that he had a gun. He just sounds like he doesn't know what he's doing and he's blundering around. And like I mentioned in parts 2 or 3, he sounded like he might be the high conflict parent. So having a gun in his pocket, I find it hard to believe. Friends turned into hostile witnesses as the trial went on. I mean, I guess it's just, I don't know. I don't know why that would surprise him. Because I think about my own case. Would this have happened in my own case? If we had a bunch of friends, would she have turned them against me and got them to testify in court? Probably. Not going to say for sure, not going to say all of them, but probably she would have gotten a few of them. It's just, she's just good at that. And so if he had a high conflict ex, I could have seen that happening. Guilty of, so yeah, he did get found guilty. Well, he uses the word guilty. I don't think they use that word family court because it's not a crime. It's not a criminal court. They're making findings. Apparently the judge found that he had committed domestic violence, that she was going to grant the 1-year restraining order, that his ex was going to get full custody of the kids with visitation to him once every 3 weeks. And there was a way out for him, and that is to pass his drug tests for 3 months. And if he passed those for 3 months, then he could try to get rid of the restraining order. He could try to get more. Because I guess that was sort of the gateway for him to have another shot. And he talks about how that is something that he would focus on intensely. And not just, what was it? Let's see. There's one more thing here. Oh, well, yeah, okay, I'll talk about this. He talks about how he and his wife flipped roles. How his wife used to be the conformist. She would incrementally do things. She was very slow. She didn't take risks. And how he used to be the absolute daring, determined, risk-taking, adventurous guy. And that once this case started, they flipped roles. I think it's interesting. I think it's believable. I don't think my ex and it doesn't apply to us. I mean, she was always the type to do what she did, and I was always the more cautious one. So, I mean, back then anyway. Now, I mean, with all the stuff I'm doing now, I guess you wouldn't believe that. But back then I was very different. And I talk about that in the video, self-love deficit disorder. I think that this is all I have. I really wish I could go into more. He went into some detail in that on what happened at that hearing, but he didn't go into a lot of detail. I kind of wish we had some of these transcripts, and I can't remember off the top of my head which transcript it was. There was some testimony that he mentioned, and I can't remember now, so it must not be that important. But I remember thinking to myself, I would like to see if that's true. There were a few things, and if anybody else is reading and anything like that jumped out at them, definitely post down in the comments below, because that would be something that I would give a second glance at. So yeah, post any questions you have down in the comments below. I think I already mentioned that, but I will go ahead and sign off now, and I will see you guys next time.